The story of Helen Keller. A long time ago, in 1880, a little girl named Helen Keller was born in a small town called Tuscumbia, Alabama. Helen was the first child of her parents, Arthur and Kate Keller. Her father worked for a newspaper, and her mother loved to read stories to her. Helen was a happy and curious baby. She loved to laugh, play, and explore the world around her. She would run outside, smell the flowers, and watch the birds fly. But when Helen was just 19 months old, something terrible happened. She got very sick with a high fever. Her parents did everything they could to help her, and after a few days, the fever went away. But Helen's parents noticed something strange. Helen stopped responding to sounds, and she didn't turn her head when the light came into the room. Her family realized Helen couldn't see or hear anymore. Losing her sight and hearing made Helen's world dark and silent. She couldn't talk to anyone or understand what was happening around her. This made Helen feel frustrated and angry. She didn't know how to ask for food or water, and she didn't know how to play like other children. Sometimes, Helen would scream or hit people because she felt so upset. Helen's parents loved her very much. They tried to help her, but they didn't know what to do. They let her do whatever she wanted because they felt sorry for her. Helen often ran wild around the house, breaking things or pulling at her family's clothes to get their attention. When Helen was about 6 years old, her mother read about a girl who was both blind and deaf but had learned how to communicate. Helen's parents decided to ask for help. They wrote to a special school for blind people in Boston, and the school sent a teacher named Anne Sullivan to help Helen. Anne Sullivan arrived at the Keller home in March 1887. She was 20 years old and had a strong will. Anne understood how hard life could be because she had been blind when she was a child. She had surgery that helped her see again, and she wanted to use what she had learned to teach others. Anne quickly realized that Helen was smart but had no way to express herself. Helen didn't know how to behave, so Anne started by teaching her basic rules. For example, Anne showed Helen how to sit at the table and eat with a spoon instead of grabbing food with her hands. It was hard work because Helen was used to doing things her way. Next, Anne began teaching Helen how to communicate. She used a special method called finger spelling. Anne would hold Helen's hand and spell words by making shapes with her fingers. For example, Anne would spell DOLL while giving Helen her doll to hold. But Helen didn't understand what Anne was doing. She thought it was just a game. One day, something amazing happened. Anne and Helen were outside near the water pump. Anne held Helen's hand under the cool water and spelled the word WATER in Helen's other hand. Suddenly, Helen understood that the shapes Anne made in her hand meant the water she felt. Helen got so excited. She touched the ground, and Anne spelled DIRT. She touched the dog, and Anne spelled DOG. For the first time, Helen realized that everything had a name. This moment changed Helen's life. She wanted to learn everything. She worked hard every day with Anne. Helen learned how to spell more words and read books using Braille, a system of raised dots that blind people can feel with their fingers. Helen also learned how to write by using a special board with lines to guide her. Helen didn't stop there. She wanted to learn how to speak. Even though it was very difficult, Helen practiced for hours with Anne and other teachers. She learned to feel the vibrations of people's voices and use her own voice to say words. It took a long time, but Helen never gave up. As Helen grew older, she became famous for her hard work and determination. She went to school and even graduated from college. In 1904, Helen became the first deaf and blind person to earn a college degree. This was an amazing accomplishment, and people from all over the world admired her. Helen wanted to help other people like her. She traveled around the world, giving speeches and writing books. She told people that even if life is hard, you can still do great things if you try your best. Helen worked with organizations that helped blind and deaf people, and she raised money to support them. Anne Sullivan stayed by Helen's side for many years. They were more than teacher and student, they were best friends. Anne helped Helen achieve her dreams, and Helen always said she couldn't have done it without Anne. Even after Anne passed away, Helen continued her work. She met many famous people, like presidents and authors, and even helped inspire laws that made life better for people with disabilities. Helen Keller lived a long and inspiring life. She showed the world that with hard work, patience, and the help of caring people, you can overcome any challenge. Even today, people remember Helen as a symbol of hope and strength.